Hello everyone, welcome to this online talk organized by SIB Utrecht, and especially a warm welcome to those of you who are watching live from Café Hemingway. Tonight we're going to talk about the Catholic Church in the Netherlands. The position of the Catholic Church in the Netherlands has always been a remarkable one. Despite being the largest religious group in the Netherlands, the dominant church in the Netherlands has always been the Protestant church. And the last couple of years, the Catholic Church is facing serious problems, such as rapidly decreasing of people who consider themselves as Catholic, shortage of money, lack of priests, and this raises the question whether the Catholic Church still has a future in the Netherlands. Tonight we're going to discuss this with Willem-Marie Speelman and Kees de Groot, both working on Tilburg University, and they are very much known with this topic. So Kees, I would like to give the floor to you to tell us all about the future of the Catholic Church in the Netherlands.
Well, thank you, Jelje. I see that I'm not starting with my first slide, so this is the first slide. Dear students, the Roman Catholic Church has changed quite radically, and your perfect introduction already told the facts, so I can be short about this. The face of the Roman Catholic Church looks quite different today. If you want to go to a flourishing big parish, you should go to Rotterdam, to the parish of the people of the Cape Verde Islands near Portugal. That's probably the biggest parish in the Netherlands. Or you could also go, that's not so big, but it is interesting. Go to Amsterdam, to the Waterlooplein, the Moses and the Aaron Church, which is used by a very interesting but small movement called San Egidio. And that's a movement that's combining prayer with help to the homeless people in Amsterdam. Homeless people, people who use drugs, also very interesting, but very small. And even tinier movement is Civitas Christiana, a very extreme Catholic small movement who is campaigning against the normalization of homosexuality and against the influence of Islam in the Netherlands. But like I said, that's all quite marginal. The basic picture of the Roman Catholic Church in the Netherlands is that it's declining, as you said, Jelje. If you look at the figures, and these are very recent figures I just received from a researcher from Nijmegen, Joris Krechting, shows that the decline of the Roman Catholic Church is still going on, like the decline of the Protestant Church in the Netherlands. And the amount of people who say they don't have any religion at all has risen to 70% according to the surveys they use, and they are quite detailed and quite realistic. There are also recent figures from Statistic Netherlands, and they have a bit more conservative figure about the unchurched, not 70%, but 54%. This is from November 2020, and it's interesting that they also show how it is divided among the different age categories. Those of you who don't read Dutch now have the opportunity to learn a bit of Dutch. 15 to 25 years old, the yellow marked row indicates that the amount of Roman Catholics in that age group is only 3% higher than the amount of Muslims in that same age group. So that's a clear message about how large the Roman Catholic Church is now, and an indication of how large it will be in the near future. So if you look at the general picture and try to predict a bit, then you can say, well, the future of the Roman Catholic Church will probably be multicultural, and it will be smaller, considerably smaller. This is not something special about the Catholic Church. So I like to zoom out a bit and look at the figures about religion in general, and not just in the Netherlands, but global, to the world value studies. There are also recent figures on this, and they show that there is a global trend towards a decline of religion. This is quite new because until recently, religion used to be growing all over the world because people who are religious tend to have more children. So there were already dominant tendencies of secularization, but the countries that didn't secularize that much had more. In those countries, families had more children. Fertility rate was higher. But nowadays, almost all countries are declining, not just countries like the Netherlands, which is halfway in this graph, or countries like Norway, where I'm at the present, which is quite low in this paragraph. But yeah, except for the exception of countries like India and Bulgaria, almost all countries are declining. The explanation the researchers of the world value studies give is that people tend to believe in God, tend to think that God is important in their lives, are people who live in a country where existential security is low. So if your conditions are not that good, you tend to be more religious. And that is true not so much on an individual level, but on a country level. There's a nice map they give, giving clusters of countries. On one side, the vertical X on traditional versus secular values. So that's about the importance of God in their lives. And the horizontal X is about self-expression values. That is, to what extent do the respondents agree with statements like, it is not always a bad thing when people divorce. It's not always a bad thing when homosexuals get more rights, and it's not always a bad thing if women commit abortion. And the trend, the global trend, is towards the upper right corner, towards the Protestant countries, towards the Nordic countries. So all countries are moving in that direction. So also the Protestant countries in Europe were more to the left, more to the lower side of this graph. So the whole world is moving towards acceptance of homosexuality, abortion, divorce, gender equality, and moving. And moving, departing from religiosity. So, so much for the decline. I like to delve a bit further into what happens when this decline takes place. So you could stop here and say, well, it's going down. That's it, decay. But it's interesting to see what happens when religion disappears, transforms. What comes in the place of religion? And that's what I've been doing research on the last 20 years, I would say. I use a characterization of contemporary society, which was invented by the sociologist Sigmund Bauman, who says, we live in liquid modernity. Everything is melting nowadays. Political parties, the unions, the times are constantly changing, and religion is changing too. Religion is not exactly gone, it's not returning either, which some people have expected, but it's becoming liquid. So what happens on a more detailed scale at the meso level of institutions when religion is taking a step backwards and what others are taking a step forward. So it's both there. There are still religious organizations declining, but as I would see it, there's also religion out there. I give three examples or even three stages in this process of liquidization of religion. First stage are the ecclesial Minervas in fluidity. Roman Catholic Church is involved in reaching out to people living in liquid modernity through the media, for example, and not exactly really in control, but still involved. A well-known example for those of you who have been in the Netherlands for a while is the Passion on Monday, Thursday, the Thursday before Easter. Every year, for the 11th time this year, there is this media event, and in the right corner of this photograph you can see a white cross, which is a prominent place in the whole thing, but it's also very much a musical. The idea is that they use the way of the cross to draw attention to the Feast of Easter. But it's mixed with the musical, and what's very important is that there are all kinds of celebrities singing particular versions of well-known songs adapted to the setting of Easter. The broadcasting company the last years is the Catholic Broadcasting Company. So the Catholic Church is even involved itself. But yeah, is it really church? It's somewhere on the boundaries. Even a step further from the sphere of influence of the Catholic Church is spiritual care. And that's another example I will give. That's an example of, let's say, ecclesial initiatives within the secular sphere. In the 20th century, something like hospital chaplaincy evolved as a distinct profession. If you end up in hospital today, tomorrow, or maybe at a point later in your life, I don't hope so, but you never know. Maybe there will be coming someone to you when you are lying there in your bed who asks, how are you really doing? Except for all the medical diagnoses and all the difficult things that the doctors and the nurses are telling you, how are you doing as a person? That's probably a spiritual caregiver. He or she, mostly she, might be Protestant, Catholic, but could also be humanist or not attached to any religion or organized worldview, levensbeschouwing at all. And interestingly, very recently, it's also possible that those spiritual caregivers can pay you a visit, not when you're in the hospital, but also when you're at home. That's a recent development. Spiritual care at home only exists since 2019. Maybe it's nice to know what the criteria are. Of course, you have to be in a bad shape. The nice thing, if you're older, if you're over 50, then it's assumed you are in a bad shape. So then you can get a visit, and then you can order a spiritual caregiver at your home. And another condition is when you have a life-threatening disease, and the third criterion is when you're living in Groningen, northeast of Netherlands, in the area which is suffering from earthquakes. So then you can go to this website I showed you, and then you see this picture, and you can click and order a spiritual caregiver, which is subsidized by the collective insurances if you meet the criteria. If not, you have to pay yourself. That can be quite expensive because they're all academics, well paid, like we are. If you are struggling with your life, does my life has any purpose? Why should I live further? Then you can get a visit from a spiritual caregiver instead of a priest or a reverend, as it used to be. Third phase, third stage, when religion is just out there, including Catholicism, out there in culture, like in novels, in games, in movies, or in comics. And that's my specialty, religion in comics. Now comes a bit of a delicate slide, so this is a warning. Maybe it's not wise that this is shown in a cafe, public environment. Okay, don't blame me, don't tell anyone, but I'm going to show you a picture taken from the comic Tintin, Kuifje. Namely this one. Of course, notorious because of the racist stereotype. What's interesting is that there's also a missionary in the picture, and he's the good guy in this comic, which actually started as a Catholic propaganda thing in the 1920s, late 1920s, in order to convince people that they should go to Congo to convert the ignorant Negroes. I should use this word, it's insulting, I know, but this is the context of this area, of this era. Catholicism is in there. And generally, religion is in there. If I now skip to the more recent type of graphic novels, as they are now called, if they are more directed towards an adult audience and more serious, then there is this very beautiful novel, A Contract with God, 1978. I remember when this was published that I thought, how is it possible that this is so popular? This is the most well-known graphic novel there is, probably the classic graphic novel, so to speak. I was very impressed by it, and I thought, okay, I'm a Catholic guy and I'm interested in Judaism, so I can resonate with this. But apparently, also a lot of people who are don't have religious background can resonate with this and can appreciate this. So that's, I think, something very interesting. Religion is out there in culture, and also people with a secular background can appreciate this. One could talk hours about religion in popular culture. I don't have the time. I will just show you a more recent graphic novel from France about the present Pope. Maybe this will be a big success, maybe not, but I'm quite sure that religion will still be out there in popular culture, including in comics. And I think that I come to my conclusion that says something about the place of religion in contemporary culture, in liquid modernity. It's not so much about affirming beliefs that have been formulated by a religious institute, but it's more about playing along, about playing along with religious notions, Catholic notions, maybe side by side with other religious notions, playing along because it's serious business. Playing along because it's serious business, playing along because religious notions formulate a human answer to things that are of ultimate importance. So these are my, I think, 20 minutes. Just ending, because we are living in a society where the market is dominant, I end with a commercial, namely the reference to the book where it's all in, The Liquidation of the Church. Thank you, looking forward to the discussion. Good luck, Willem-Marie.
Oh, no. Do you hear me now? Okay, thank you. I will continue where you stopped, Kees. Thank you for your beautiful lecture. And you said religion is very important. And I called my speech "No Future for the Roman Catholic Church," and I think this should be a hopeful meditation. As you said, we are passing the age of the world religious, and you said, why is religion important, and why will it always be there? Because religion has a function in society. The word religion has to do with the word legate, link. It legates and mediates between the immanent, we here and now, the world, and the transcendent. And there is no system without a beyond the system. Even if you think of the universe as one closed system, there will be a crazy physicist who say there are more universes, because we can't think of a society or a culture or a system without a beyond. And religion is exactly that which mediates between the here and the beyond. Therefore, we can say and expect that every culture has a cult, and that every society creates its own religious forms. Now, we had the great world religions, and we will still have them. But Professor Staff Hellemans said this is a religion which belongs to a certain type of society, highly organized, agricultural, and it's a literate society. The three major world religions are religions of the book. And you can see that in their cults, especially when you are in a Protestant church, but also in a Roman Catholic church, everybody is constantly reading. I noticed that when I attended a church from Indonesia where nobody was reading. And by the way, in Urk, nobody is reading. They sing by heart. But the rest of the Catholics and the Protestants, but also the Muslims and the Jews, are constantly reading. That is that kind of religion, and that will happily disappear. As the great philosopher Charles Taylor said, our secular age at this time has just followed that route of creating its own religious. It's called a religious genius process. I mean, every culture creates its own religions. And when you have a monotheistic religion of the book, the world becomes the here and now, and everything in the book is transcendental, the beyond. And God became absolutely transcendental to the extent that he is absolutely not there anymore. So atheism is a product of this long-term process. And Charles Taylor said that the modern subject that we think of ourselves fills the gap of that religion. And as Kees pointed out, the church retreats into the church letters, to the liturgy, and leaves large parts of the religion to the people outside. So, so the pastoral care is now performed by other people than Roman Catholics. And actually that was a stage. First of all, the hospitals were run by nuns, we call them sisters. Nurses are in Dutch called, in the Netherlands called, still called sisters. And they had a religious calling, and then the people of the church, the priests, took their own role, praying with the people, and that became a secular function, geestelijk verzorgen. And as Kees also noticed, when you take that outside the church, you remember the picture of a church and a large place before it. This is the marketplace. It's called, the church in Latin is called, or the temple is called the fanum. And before the fanum is the profanum, the profane world. The market rules there. And so that's what's happening today. And as Kees said, what will happen to this religion? He mentioned that it will be a multicultural, perhaps world religion in the periphery or so. And there are also minorites. I don't remember the groups that you mentioned, Kees, but the San Egidio gemeenschap is people, a minority of pure people, and constantly clashing with each other and with the multicultural world religion. But we can also think about the other 64% who creates their own religion. And you could invent the word, they relegate, they reconnect themselves with the transcendent in their own way, in their own time. They make their own church with everything that's there, that's possibly there. But my question when I started to think about this lecture is, who asks the questions? Because this is mainly a sociological thing or a scientific thing. And but what if we ask the church itself and then ask the question, in how far is this a problem? Now I know that there are bishops to whom this is a very large problem. It has to do with their own future, with money, with the expensive churches and so. But let's ask the question again, to whom is this a problem? And I would say the church doesn't need to care about her own future, because that's not why the church is there. I have 3 points, and I will discuss these 3 points after each other and then come to a conclusion. The first thing, the focus of the church is never on solving problems. You can go to church if you have a problem, if you're feeling lonely, if you need meaningfulness in life, or if you want to have a religious experience. I don't mind, do that. But the church is not there to solve your problems or her own problems. Her calling is to bring you in contact with the mystery. There is a mystery behind every problem. And I will go into that, because what is a mystery? For one thing, the geestelijk verzorger that Kees mentioned, if she is visiting you in hospital, she will not have a diagnosis. She doesn't ask, what's your problem? Or we're going to measure your pain, or and we're going to do something about it. She just asks, how are you really doing? And this, how are you really doing, is a question about the mystery behind your disease and behind your not well-being or well-being. The second thing is, the church is nothing other than a medium. There's no goal in itself to have a church. It doesn't need to exist unless it serves a certain goal, which is to continue the mission of Jesus, which is to proclaim the reign of the divine. And I say proclaim, not to organize it, not to create it. She's not an instrument to make a better world. It's a proclamation. She will show it, she will dream about it, she will make music about it, she will celebrate it, but just to proclaim it. That's her service. So it shouldn't be anything else but a medium. And the third thing is, the church doesn't deal with the future, especially not a future that we are going to make. We don't have to make a better world. We don't have to improve the world. So that's not the calling of the church. Her task is to prepare for the Advent, which is another word for future, from the Latin advenire, coming. Venire is coming. Adventure is also a word coming from that. It's a future that's coming towards us. And think about the expectation of a child. Of course, you have to do something to make a child, so it will be there in the future. That's also a short period of time and a very wonderful time, but the most part of the time you're waiting, expecting, especially the mother is expecting the child. And what does she do? Not much. She prepares for the coming of the child, a room, a tranquil home, peaceful home. So you prepare for the coming of that child. It's not a project. It sometimes happens that when the child is born, the father thinks, now we have a project, we will build a good football player from it. But that's not a good future for the child. It's better to expect it and wait for it, for the talents in the child coming forth. That's Advent, another type of future. I will go into these 3 points. First of all, the problem. There are 2 ways to approach the reality. It's a problem approach and a mystery approach. And I would say, don't solve a problem when it offers you the mystery. We know what solving of problems is. We live in a society in which everything is approached as a problem. And for example, the COVID-19 virus was a problem. So we booked a vacation with an airplane to a faraway place, seashore, and then this COVID virus came. And then there was a problem. We couldn't fly anymore. Now, what do? You isolate the virus, put it on a table, analyze it in detail, find a solution for the problem, which is the vaccine. New problems come, how to vaccine everybody. So our whole past year was a problem-solving year, and it still is. And one important thing of this problem-solving approach of reality is that there is a timeline. Everybody wants a timeline. When can we continue with our life before? So if you have a problem approach, you have a future, you create a future. And especially it's especially well done if you are able to predict the future. On the 26th of June, we can live normally again of this year. That's a prediction. And so that's the future. What is a problem? Gabriel Marcel, a French philosopher, said, a problem is something met with which bars my passage. I'm on a road, and there's suddenly a bear on the road. I don't want to meet the bear. I'm not interested in bears, but I want to continue my path. What should I do? Kill the bear. Bring a solution to this problem, and I can continue. Take the vaccine and go to faraway seashores with your airplane. That's the way we do it. That's a problem. But this is not life. We might expect that life is a continuous problem-solving project, but it isn't. It's essentially a mystery. We don't know it. We don't know what child is going to come and what this child is going to be. The child, he or himself, doesn't know what talents are in there. It's a mystery. It comes to you. And the mystery can't be put before you to analyze it in detail and to solve it. The mystery is just there. I am here, and this is not a problem. I am not a problem. I'm a mystery, and this mystery is within me and around me. And I like the image of the mystery as a face, a countenance, looking at me and giving direction. And I have this from Genesis, the first book of the Bible, chapter 17, verse 1, when Abram meets the divine God. And then God says, walk before my face and live a perfect life. That's a mystery. We can have that experience when we're walking in the woods, when we are in a museum and think, perfect life, that is all about, but that's not a problem. The church is there to bring you in contact with that mystery, not to solve your problems, and least of all, to solve your own problems. That's the first thing I want to say. The second, the church is a medium, not a thing. Today, people seem to being raised up as a project. You have to do something with your life. You have to make something. And what are you going to do next year? And where will you be in the next 5 years? And what are you going to be? It's a project. A project will often produce losers and sometimes a winner. The church in itself is not a project. It's like the mother expecting a child rather than retreating movement to make room for what's coming. And this the church intends to be is called to be a place of encounter with that mystery. If you go to church, this is not going to solve the problem, but it brings you an encounter with the mystery of what shall I do with my life? Not as a project, but how is it good? How can I be good? What coming is a mystery, and in our daily language, we can say, this is a mystery to me, and then we mean we will solve it later. So mystery is mostly a negatively defined thing. We don't know it yet. But mystery is not a negative thing, it's a positive thing. It's not something that is not yet clear, but it's a thing that makes things clear because it sheds a different light on things. If I look at my life, while I'm in love, everything is beautiful, or at least more beautiful. It can also be very painful, but the mystery sheds a certain light on the life and make things clear in this life. So if I look at my life in the light of the reign of God, the kingdom of God, or the face of God, everything becomes a challenge, or I just need to wait, or it will be good. So if I live in the expectance of a good life, my life is lighter, better. I can bear pain. If I go to a dentist, I can bear pain from the dentist because I know that after the dentist, my teeth will be healthy again, and I will not have that much pain. So this tiny bit of pain at the dentist is okay to me. It's a challenge because I see it in the light of the good life that comes after it. That's how a mystery works. And this is what the church does. This is her core business. Case wrote that in another article, so I quote Case here. So this is the core business. Celebrate it. Don't make it, don't create it. Celebrate the mystery of the good life. You don't have to say much. You can do it in silence, in prayer, in sense, in beautiful music, in visions of the good life, in the gesture. We just saw the Pope. Pope Francis is a man of gesture. He does something with a dove or with a homeless child. He talks to them. He communicates with them. And every journalist is in love with this Pope because he is a man of a gesture. He doesn't do much. But that's not needed. We don't create a better world. So the church doesn't need to create a better world. She just has to celebrate it. And we know about those people, the dictators who wanted to create a better life. It's not almost, always, it is always a disaster. Now, every religion will grow into an institution, also the Roman Catholic Church and also the New Age churches that will be successful will grow into an institution. Even how is it? Game of Wars? This film of May the Force be with you. How's it? Something.
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Okay, it's also become an institution, and this is good. It's good when the church grows into an institution because this space of encounter needs to be guarded and saved. You have to be saved. But another thing is a space can be turned into a cage, and then the church loses her function. That's the second thing. The third thing is there is no future, only an advent. I want to say that there is no future for the church, but it's not important if there is a future. The important thing is there an advent? Because I think people will always need a time and a place to encounter this mystery. If you say, I don't believe in God, you don't yet say, I don't believe in the mystery. I think that most people believe that there is something that they don't know about another person, and they will never know. And it's not a negative thing. The mystery is there is too much to know. It's too great, and it gives me life. And I don't need to understand that. I can love it. And I want to encounter it. So if I don't believe in God, I still believe in the mystery because my life is a mystery, my own life. I don't know myself, and I'm not a problem. I'm a mystery. So the main function is not to solve problems, but to guard and save that place of encounter. There's even a story in the Bible, the Garden of Eden, and there it says that Adam means human being, has to guard and serve that place. And the Garden of Eden is an image, a metaphor for the human soul, but also for the liturgy. And what is the importance of celebrating a liturgy? Well, like I said when I was telling you about me going to the dentist, if I live my life and I work in the perspective of a good life, it's a life of expectation. It is now already a better life. It gives meaning to my life if I know it's going to be good. Not because I make it good, but it's going to be good. And this is the message of the perfection of the gospel. So when Jesus says, I will soon be there, a probable approach will ask, how much time does it need when you come there? And they look at the clock, and it's already taking 2,000 years, and he's not yet there. But the message is, it's nearing already. It's very close. It's very close to you at that time, now, and in the future. It's a nearing, an advent. And the only way we can experience this perfection is when you look at arts. And my example was always music. If you play on a cello or on the piano or sing in a choir a perfect fifth, that is perfection as you can experience it. And people react to that. If it's a perfect, pure chord or consonant, it's not only hearing, but it's a feeling of perfection. So we know what perfection is because there is music. And that's what we do in liturgy. We make harmony, which gives us a perspective to our life, to whatever we are doing. 1 hour in a week, we need to have that experience of good life. Because then we can relate everything we do to this mystery. And if everything is in the perspective of this mystery, it is always seen in the light of the good. And if it's seen in the light of the good, we ourselves will try to correspond, to tune into that harmony. And we become corresponding people, responsible people. So we grow into the goodness of life and become good people. And also, and now back to this geestelijk verzorgen case was talking about the pastoral care. How are you doing? It's a question about well-being. Perhaps this person in the bed says, I'm not being any well. I'm doing very bad because I have a cancer and I'm going to die. So as miserable as it may be, the question is still there. How are you doing? Because the attunement to the goodness of life, even when you have a miserable life, makes this life not only bearable, but makes people say, I'm perfectly well, thank you. And that would be the end. Okay, but the conclusion is, what is the future of the Catholic Church? Well, I said no future because it's an advent, it's a coming truth. It's a reality coming near to us. It's in itself. She is in herself an expectation. And I want to ask you, many minutes do I have still?
Yes, I think I think you're perfectly on time.
But not enough to show the poem of Gerard Breven.
Oh, if you want to, yes. I think if
Okay.
it's short, then of course. Yes.
Okay, it's my own translation, but Gerard Breven wrote a poem, Graf de Blauwhuis voor HTG, it's called. And it's about this expectation of the good life, how miserable you may be. He ran away but couldn't escape and was hit and died, 18 years old. A feisty inscription declares so many things. But from a brown, enameled portrait, a scowly and silent face is watching. A child still. Hello, dear boy. Thou who art king, this and that, whatever. Yeah, we don't see much of that these days. Thou knowest why this is, I don't. That kingdom of yours, you know what I mean. What about it? Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much, Kees and Willem-Marie. I think we'll have a short break of approximately 10 minutes, and then we will be back here at 20:53 for the people on the Hemingway, so they can grab or buy a drink, and for us to relax a bit, to think about all the interesting stuff you told us. And I think we will see each other in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Yeah, it's now time for the question round, so you can answer all the questions you have to Kees and Mary. For those of you who are watching from Cafe Hemingway, you can ask your questions via the chat. You can go to the YouTube app and write your question in the comment section, or you can do the same with YouTube on Facebook, or you can ask a board member and they will ask your question for you in the comment section. Well, now I already see a question from Maya, and she says that she really liked the point about mysteries not always having to be something to be solved, but something that can give light as well. And she is wondering about the rise of individualism and secularization. Do you think these are related?
Could you repeat the last part of the question? The relation between the mystery and the individualization?
Yeah, the secularization. So individualism and secularization, do you think these are related?
Oh, that's a case. Help. That's a good question. That's a very good question. I would think it is, but it's a new question to me. Especially when you have a problem approach, you solve the problem. And if you solve a problem, you analyze it into details. If you analyze other things in details, you will become a detail yourself. So it is an individualizing process. And it brings you to the matter, which is a worldly thing, a secular thing. So a problem approach will enhance the individualization. But that's the expectation. I improvise this answer. On the other hand, a mystery is always a holistic approach. You can't analyze the mystery. And and you're not alone in the mystery, because the mystery is there with you. The force is with you. Yeah.
Yeah, the classic view on secularization is that modernization, that is, if technology becomes more important in society, and that has all kinds of consequences in society. If society modernizes, then it becomes more secular. And the figures I showed confirms that classical idea about secularization. Technology is about solving problems. I would sustain your answer, Willemanie.
Yeah, going further on the secularization part, I was myself wondering, the Catholic Church as an institution, how will that take place in a more secularized society? With if you think about like the Catholic Church as like a community with the Pope leading the community towards and even better, I think, towards the kingdom of God. That doesn't really, in my head, it doesn't fit into like the individualistic and secularizing society. So how do you see the place of the Catholic Church within that modern society?
The question to me, Jalia?
Yeah,
both of us. Okay, yeah. I will give it a start. We inclined to think about the Catholic Church as an institution that has always been like it is now. That's also the message the Church radiates itself. That it has always been like this, but it hasn't. So the Catholic Church, as we know it, is in fact a modern institution, very modern. So like you're saying, like an organization with the Pope at the head, like the CEO, etc., and then all these national divisions and regional divisions, each with the chief on the in the leading positions, and all organized, and that you can draw an organogram, etc. That's the church that has been constructed in the late 19th century and has been very successful. So I showed you the decline of the Roman Catholic Church, but before this decline in the 60s, the Roman Catholic Church was growing in the Netherlands. It was very successful. in terms of membership and in terms of impact in society, organizing, establishing hospitals, schools, etc. So the church made itself at home very much in modern society. But modern society has changed. So to use the metaphors that Sigmund Bauman uses, we moved from a solid modernity with all these hierarchical organizations to more liquid modernity, where networks and flexibility, etc., is important, and experience and events and communication through the media and social media, etc. So at one point you can say, yes, the Roman Catholic Church adapts to that situation. I can go on for hours, but just stop me when you are the chair. The present Pope, for example, is not so much operating as the CEO. If you look at him in that respect, then he's a complete failure. In fact, I have a book here that says he is a failure because he doesn't accomplish anything. He said he's going to change everything, but everything remains the same. We still don't have women as priests, etc. But he is a success in terms of liquid modernity because he is very much appreciated also by people outside the church. He is a media personality. Through the media, he inspires people. I witnessed the prayer he did at the completely empty plaza of St. Peter in Rome. Very impressive. And I read lots of columns, etc., people saying that is enormously impressive, even if people are not Catholic. So the Catholic Church does transform, does adapt to liquid modernity, but then there's a story that Willem Marie told. Catholicism, Protestantism, it's all religions after scriptures. Scripture is old school technology. We will probably have new forms of religion that are more, even more at home in contemporary culture.
Yeah, but because I heard you say something about that the Catholic Church is nowadays like a modern organization, but I do feel that there are certain parts of the church that are not quite as modern. Think about their views on gay marriage, for example, or abortion, or women's rights. So those two doesn't really fit in my.
But dear Jeljer, until 1968, I think, in this modern Dutch society, married women were not allowed to work. Until the 70s, you could end up in jail if you were caught having sex with someone of the same sex. That's all modern society. So the things you are saying about the Roman Catholic Church were very much true for Dutch culture in general in modern day 20th century. So in that respect, the Catholic Church is not lagging behind 3/4 of a century, but modern times are longer than the last few decades. Yes, the Catholic Church has reconstructed itself in the late 19th century as a modern organization. But nowadays, especially in countries that are in the upper right corner of the picture I showed you, in Protestant Europe, in the English-speaking world, there the Roman Catholic Church is very much in an antagonistic position. That's absolutely true.
Okay. Do you have something to add to that, Willem Marie?
Oh, well, no, I like the answer very much. To continue with this Pope being a representative of the liquid church, I would like to repeat that this is a man of gesture. people are very, especially conservative people, also very modern people, are angry at him that he doesn't settle things. A CEO settles things, we organize it, and he doesn't. He does a gesture, and then people are unhappy. The problem is not solved, but again, he's not there to solve the problems. He's there to do a gesture. And the important thing of a gesture is, perhaps after the age of the book, we should enter into the age of the gesture, because when you do a gesture, other people think, I can do that too. And they have their own responsibility to work in their lives. And that will change the world. Not one person will change the world. Everybody.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question from Anouk. And she asked about the growth of the Catholic Church. I heard about green churches. They're involved in an ecological approach of religious life. Would there be a future of the Catholicism when they adopt this modern way? So if the Catholic Church would adopt more like a green vision, would that help in the growth of the Catholic Church?
Well, I think it would be a bad reason for the Church to be involved in an ecological movement in order to grow. My personal opinion would be that they should involve in the ecological movement because it's important, not because they benefit from it themselves. But there has been a bit of research on churches and greening, and that suggested that there is a bit of a discrepancy between the recent encyclical letter of the Pope, Laudato Si, which is very much on ecological issues, and what's being done at the level of parishes, at the local level. And there's not so much greening yet going on. Sometimes even the opposite way, that parishes are putting money in fossil industry. Or very recently, I heard that the parish in my hometown, Korvel, has removed a couple of trees, whereas those trees are quite necessary in Tilburg, as my friend told me. On a more general, abstract level, the question is, can the Church benefit from engaging with a particular societal issue? And I think that is true. That the Church can benefit from something like that. So, for example, if the Church is involved in greening or involved in giving an answer to the corona situation, or is advocating as a defender of the national culture, then that can result into growth in membership. Whether that's desirable from the point of view that Willem-Marie was presenting, that's not a question. But empirically, yes, that is a possibility.
Yeah, do you have something to add about this?
You saw that in Poland. When Poland was free, the Catholic Church was booming. And when and in Korea, I heard that people became all Korean, southern Koreans became Catholics because the Catholic Church preaches equality, and that's important to them. But that's not a reason to, because then it's a problem-solving church. And this ecological, this greening church, well, I'm director of the Franciscan Study Center, and the patron of the ecology is Francis. So in the church, there was already a view on nature, which is very influential in the ecological movement, which comes from Francis. And I would always say he didn't care about nature; he cared about creation, and that would be a good thing. Not because it's popular, but as Kay said, because it's good. It's good to live in creation.
Okay, I think that's a good answer. At least I hope so for Anouk. I have a question from Nino, and he asked, to what extent will the Church and possibly other religions modernize without losing the core values of the said religion? I think this is maybe a good one for Willem-Marie to answer.
Well, is modernization a thing in itself, a worth in itself? I think it's important that the church is always in contact with the world around her. And if that's a modern world, she should adapt in certain ways to the modern world. Although I also believe that that it is important to have a conservative force, albeit only to take away the pressure from very conservative people, that they have a place there. So it shouldn't be too fast in changing, but it has to adapt to its environment. And well, that's actually an ecological view. Adapt to your environment. And if you're living in a modern society, well, you can't prevent it to become modern. So that's a good thing, because you have a function in that society. But modernity in itself is not, we live in a late modern society, so why would we want to become modern people? We would go backwards.
Do you have something to add about to that case?
That's a good point, good answer. Indeed, sometimes that happens, that the church tends to move backwards in trying to adapt. So because they adapt to a previous situation. But if you look backwards, that's a lot easier than looking forwards. Then you can see that the church has always changed. I mean, the church started as a movement around the Jewish rabbi, and then it became something Hellenistic, and it changed over centuries, over the whole course of time. So of course it changes. Yeah.
Okay. I think we have time for 2 more questions, and then the night is already over, at least for this point. Neon asks, he firstly thanks you for the thoughts, but he asks, do you think the Protestant Church is going through a similar development regarding decay? So, do you think that the Protestant churches are the lines you showed us at the beginning case of the decreasing numbers of people who are attending church? Is that similar?
A good question. It is a bit similar, actually. So one thing is that young people who are affiliated with a church tend to take their faith a bit more serious. And that's especially true for young Protestants. So the young Catholics who take faith serious are in such a small amount that you can hardly detect them in these surveys, but you can detect the more orthodox, religious, firm believers among the Protestants. And they are often in the more evangelical churches and Pentecostal churches, and in transnational churches, sometimes neo-Pentecostal churches. So it's a bit different. The general thing is that there is a parallel development. So the dominant trend is secularization. But as this continues, the people who are religious tend to say, well, religion is very important in life, is very important for society as a public, needs to have a public impact. And that attitude, you can see that mainly among Protestant people. So although the decline is also going on in the Protestant churches, there is a strong core of firm believers among them.
Okay. I see one last minute question has arrived. So we do, and I already got one question in the Zoom chat. So we do, let's do one more question. So we're going to do 2 now. Sander asks, is the Catholic Church still a political movement within the Netherlands when looking at political parties, for example, CDA and ChristenUnie, who are part of the last coalition and maybe in the upcoming one?
Question to me, or
whoever. I'm Willem-Marie. I don't know if you want to answer this.
one. although the Catholic Church is quite small, it has a history. It has been part of the establishment, and there are still important ties between the Catholic Church and all kinds of institutions, including political parties. So it has a bit of a political significance. It's probably easier for a Catholic bishop to talk to the leader of the Christian Democratic Party than for Jeljer of Maya. Although I'm not totally sure about
Try
that.
it.
It's easier for me in any way. So yes, it has some political impact. Yeah.
I think the Pope sometimes has a political agenda. When Laudato Si, the second encyclical letter from which was about climate change, it appeared just before the Paris meeting. So then he had a letter, and every world leader would know about this letter because it was in the newspapers and it had a strong political message.
Yeah.
But the Church, the Roman Catholic Church, nor the Protestant Church, doesn't have power. There is no army involved, so it has to do it in a powerless way. Yeah.
Yeah, and a student of mine who did a course in Catholic social thought analyzed the political programs and found that the program of GroenLinks was closer to the encyclical letters of the Catholic Church and the Christian Democratic Party.
Okay.
All right. I think we have one last question coming from Elizabeth, and she asked, should the values of the Catholic Church evolve along with secular society, or is the role of a religion to stick in its original values? Marie, do you?
Yeah, I would say think about it yourself personally. What are the most important values of your life? And then you will probably come quite near the values of the reign of God, because you know what it is. But you have to go deep down. And there are also values that, and you know that shouldn't be followed. The values of power, of money, and those values are powerful in today's society to be a successful person or something. And but if you think yourself deep down and dig up the values that are most important for you, you will. I believe you will find the same values. And I think the Church and you yourself should stick to those values. That's amen. That's my message.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have one positive note to close on, and that is Roos, and she thinks it very interesting, and she says hi to you, Willem-Marie.
Dag Roos. Dag Roos.
This was the talk for today. Next week we will be back, same time, same place, only not in Café Hemingway, I believe. And we're going to talk about we have a literary cafe, and we're going to talk about the freedom and censorships of books and texts. So it's also very interesting. If you want to vote on this evening for the Best Speaker Award, you can do so by clicking on the link in the chat on Facebook as well as on YouTube. And yeah, on that note, I would like to end this evening, and thank you all for attending tonight. I thought it was very interesting, and I want to thank Willem-Marie and Kees again for for being with us tonight.
Thank you. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.